So tonight I thought to speak from the 11th canto, chapter 3, Liberation from the Illusory Energy. This is a conversation between the Navayogendras, 9 sons of Lord Rishabdev, who's a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, speaking to Nimhi Maharaj, particularly of the Navayogendras, the 9 sages we're hearing from, Antariksha. And Nimhi Maharaj wants to understand how the illusory energy operates. And that information is very valuable for us because I wonder how many of us really believe or really understand that there is such a thing as illusory energy that bewilders, confounds, confuses. Generally, we think that we're seeing things the way they are, and we're basically all right. Have a few bad moments, sometimes have some good moments, but we don't understand how deadly the illusory energy is, how bewildering it is. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Daivyesha gunamayi mama maya diratyaya ma'ameva prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Krishna himself, the source of all energy, tells you his illusory energy is practically impossible to overcome unless you harmonize with him, unless you do things his way. So this is a hard lesson for many of us to learn. We think we're competent. We think we're in full possession of our faculties. We may have done so many crazy things in life, but still we think we basically got it together. So how does a devotee deal with the illusory energy? Do we really understand what it means to be in Maya? So these are questions that should come to our mind. And certainly they came to the mind of King Nimhi. And he's showing you what a real chief executive should be concerned with. In order for the government to benefit the people, the government has to understand that there is the illusory energy and it bewilders people. It blocks them from seeing what is their goal in life, their real goal. Just like the clouds block the sun. But the clouds only block a portion of the sky, so you can't see the sun. But if you go above the clouds, you'll see the sun. Similarly, if you go above Maya, then you won't be affected by the clouds of Maya. And you can understand Krishna. As Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Chibir, Gunamaya, Bhavaya, Ebi Sarvam Idam Jagat. The whole world is bewildered by the 3 modes of material nature. And they don't understand Krishna, who is above the modes, out of the reach of the modes. So what you're trying to understand about Krishna may seem to have some difficulty because your body is temporary, the material world is temporary, and it's always changing. Whereas everything about Krishna is eternal and unchanging. unchanging materially. Of course, Krishna is full of spiritual variegatedness. When Krishna enters the forest with the cowherd boys, the forest changes features for Krishna's pleasure. Sometimes the change of features happens all at once. The scenery, that is, the Jamuna River, Govardhan Hill, the forests, sometimes they change their appearance. One change after another, sometimes all the changes together. But that's not material change. Material change is driven by time, whereas time is just an energy of Krishna, Kala Shakti. So if we're serious about advancing in bhakti, we need to understand and respect the power of the illusory energy. I've often explained how Srila Prabhupada said that he remarked how his disciples have no fear of Maya. So let's hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 3, Texts 1 and 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Rajovacha Pralasya Vishnoi Sasya Mayinamapi Mohanim Mayam Vedatumicchamo Bhagavanto Prabhantuna Parasya Vishnoi Sasya Mayinamapi Mohanim Mayam Vedatumicchamo Bhagavanto Prabhantuna Parasya Vishnoi Sasya Mayinamapi Mohanim Mayam Vedatumicchamo Bhagavanto Prabhantuna. Vaishnavis, Sri Raja Uvacha. The king said, Parasya, of the Supreme, Vishnu, Ishasya, the Lord, Mayanam, for the possessors of great mystic power, Api, even, Mohini, which is bewildering, Mayam, the illusory potency, Vedatum, to understand, Ichchama, we desire, Bhagavanta, my lords, Bruvantu, please tell this, na, to us. King Nimi said, now we wish to learn about the illusory potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Vishnu, which bewilders even great mystics. My lords, please speak to us about this subject. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, in this chapter, various saintly sons of Rishabhadev will speak about the illusory energy, Maya, the means for crossing beyond it, the characteristics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and prescribed duties for human beings. The 48th verse of the previous chapter stated, Vishnur Mayam Idam Pashyan. A devotee of Krishna should see the entire universe to be the illusory potency of the Lord. Therefore, King Nimi is now pursuing this subject matter by requesting more detailed information from the saintly Yogendras. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and the human beings of the earth are all driven by their particular desires for material sense gratification. Thus, they direct their senses toward research for material knowledge. The subtle celestial senses of the demigods and the gross senses of human beings are all busy in ascertaining the measurements of material sense objects. To understand fully the actual nature of Maya, the illusory potency, which causes the conditioned souls to become averse to Krishna consciousness and surrender to bewildering material manifestations, King Nimi is inquiring from another of the 9 Yogendras, Sri Antariksha. Translation again. King Nimi said, now we wish to learn about the illusory potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Vishnu, which bewilders even great mystics. My lords, please speak to us about this subject. Om Gana Chimadandasya, Gananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurun Militan Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Such an effort is being put in to understand the illusory energy. an intelligent person wants to know, why am I bewildered? Why is humanity bewildered? Why are the pages of history simply being increased with the same old, as human beings destroy one another, and now they're destroying their own habitat? It's been said that the greatest tragedy of the 21st century, the century we're in, the greatest tragedy is that no one has learned from the greatest tragedies of the 20th century. There seems to be something about every few generations that they need a refresher course in human madness. And so every few generations, just one or two generations, since the previous disastrous lesson, every one or two generations after that has to relearn the whole mess again. And so, yes, an intelligent person becomes disturbed by this, by what is happening to humanity, what's happening with our own life. Our own life is a microcosm of the macrocosm, humanity. So just as we're driving ourselves crazy with material desires, human society is driving itself as a whole crazy with material desires. There is some uniqueness about the current situation of Maya. That is that usually the human madness, the activities of human madness would take place against the background of a stable planet. But now you have crazy human activities happening against the background of a planet that's been knocked around extraordinarily. So we're used to thinking, well, human beings, they can do their crazy things, but nature will remain reliable and steady. But everyone's noticing that's not the case anymore. So we're at a point in human history and our own individual history in which we should consider, maybe we're in Maya. Could be possible that we don't have a clue really of what to do with ourselves, with each other, with the world. So King Nimi takes this seriously. Otherwise, how can he be an honest chief executive? I want to know what Maya is. I want to know the power of Maya. I want to learn about it. He's already in the previous chapter. It said, Vishnur Mayam Idam Prashyan. A devotee of Krishna should see the entire universe to be the illusory potency of the Lord. That sounds like a tall order, doesn't it? See the entire universe as an illusion. Why is that difficult for us? Because we want to enjoy the illusion. So therefore, we want it to be for real, at least for a few moments. Sometimes we get so desperate, just begging the illusory energy, just be for real for a short time, will you? We're so hungry for something that's substantial, something that's fulfilling, and we're willing to work so hard for that. Meanwhile, what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Daive esha gunamayi mamamaya duratya. You're dealing with something that's impossible to overcome unless you do things Krishna's way. So an intelligent devotee wants to understand this bewildering potency of Krishna. As King Nimi says, this bewildering potency confuses even the greatest mystics. So what to speak of us? So how is it that we can survive against such an overpowering force? Without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, the Panchatattva, it is impossible to keep yourself out of illusion in this age of Kali. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kali Kale Namarupe Krishna Avatar. In the age of Kali, Krishna appears as his name. The more seriously we take that, the more we can become free of Maya's grip. And the less seriously that we take that, the more we'll just struggle birth after birth with the illusory energy. So I can see that because the solution of chanting Hare Krishna seems so simple, you take it for granted after a while. Yeah, I've been muttering the mantra for some years now, fingering my beads. Nothing big has happened. We become insensitive sometimes, taking the holy name to be just like calisthenics. When the proper attitude for our chanting is to take shelter. Just like a child takes shelter of mother, we take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra. And we can marvel how strong the illusory energy is that's always trying to deviate us. Sometimes I've heard it said that it takes hard work to stay free from Maya. But guess what? It's much harder work to be in Maya and act in Maya. And the gain is zero and the loss is huge. Whereas you may say it's a battle with Maya that a devotee fights, but the gain is inconceivable. And there's nothing to lose. So yes, to come face to face with the reality that there's a bewildering energy that confuses us, that cheats us. Who likes to be cheated? It's such a disgusting feeling to be cheated, whether in business or in romance or whatever. To be cheated makes you feel so despicable and low and such a distasteful experience. But this is what the illusory energy is doing 24/7. Convincing us, you'll be all right without Krishna. You'll feel more natural without the bhakti lifestyle. You won't feel so much pressure on you to do this, to do that. And then, of course, when you're in Maya, you realize you're being pressurized all the time, and there's no logical purpose to it. When we try to act as if we're separate from Krishna, there's only insanity, because the part cannot be separate from the complete whole. But we're allowed to imagine that there'll be fulfillment and things will be normal that way. This is all just an hallucination. How will we ever rise above it? It's impossible without daily application of hearing and chanting about Krishna. So as we try to mature in bhakti, we need a healthy appreciation of the power of Maya. Our lifeline is chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in Krishna service. Otherwise, we'll be covered over. We're not talking about religious beliefs, religious creeds. We're talking about the science of experience. Without hearing and chanting about Krishna and engaging your senses in Krishna's service, your experience is different. Yes, you'll be in Maya and you won't even care. I don't feel so different since I stopped chanting. You lose your spiritual taste, eating unoffered food, and what's the difference? It's all vegetarian. You lose your taste for associating with devotees. They're a pain in the neck sometimes. Nice people, but non-devotees appreciate you more. They reward you at the workplace. We have to be careful not to become familiar with the bhakti process. And we can hear about that freshness of the bhakti process in the next verse, because King Nimi is going to reveal where he's at. Yes, I want to understand illusory energy, but please know that even though you've explained things before, I'm not averse to hearing it again. In fact, I'm greedy to hear it again because I never get tired of hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that he has an energy of illusion. Why? To fulfill the desires of those who want to try and live independently of him. And yet Krishna is so kind that in spite of our rebellion, he comes and displays his pleasure pastimes. Within the temporary and changing material world, Krishna brings his eternal and changeless display of pastimes. But still, we're not interested. We have better things to do, better things to hear about, better things to talk about. And that is the cause of our downfall, when we think there's something better than the 9 processes of devotional service. So let's hear what Maharaj Nimi says in verse 2. As you remember, in verse 1, he says, I want to learn about the illusory potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the greatest mystics are bewildered by it. Please, he's speaking to the Nava-yogendras, the 9 sages, these 9 special sons of Lord Rishabdev. Please, my lords, speak to us about this subject. He's the king, yet he's calling the sages my lords. Showing you how a real human society is structured. The rishis, the brahmanas, the sages, the sadhus are considered the most valuable and important members of society. They're the head on the social body. When you look these days for the head of the social body, what do you see? You see ignorance, arrogance, pride, bewilderment. people revere entertainers and athletes more than even their political leaders who pretend to act for the welfare of the people. I remember when the first time I was coming to Australia and New Zealand, 1993, I was on the plane to Australia, and one man, Australian man sitting next to me, he wanted to introduce me to how the country really worked. So he said, you know, in Australia, our heroes are not the politicians, not the religious leaders. Our heroes are the sports stars. We follow them. So it's one thing to be bewildered by cheating political leaders. It's another thing to be bewildered by entertainers and athletes as your guides in life. By hearing Bhagavatam, hearing about King Nimi, you develop, your standards rise, even without your knowing it. By hearing Bhagavatam and its dialogues and conversations, you upgrade unconsciously or consciously, your whole vision becomes upgraded. Your expectations become higher. So let's look at text number 2. Nanutripye jushan yushmad vacho hari katamritam samsara tapa nishtapto marchas tapa beshajam. I like this personal expression of his. He says, although I am drinking the nectar of your statements about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, my thirst is not yet satiated. Such nectarian descriptions of the Lord and his devotees are the actual medicine for conditioned souls like me, who are tormented by the threefold miseries of material existence. How many of us would admit we're tormented by the threefold miseries of material existence as the story of our life? That takes humility to admit to material exhaustion. Takes humility because, as I often explain, the world will push you onward. Don't give up. Keep up the struggle. You'll find fulfillment. You'll find some satisfaction temporarily, but even though it's temporary, it's something. Anyway, it's all that there is. When you think of your life without Krishna, you start to shudder. It's so horrible. Just think, you're out like a dog on the street seeking something. And the world tries to convince you you're doing the right thing. Act for yourself, fulfill yourself. Believe in God. You don't know anything about God, but anyway, believe in God. And try to make your way through this world as best you can. And then you get old, if you live a full life. You get old and die and hope for the best. I hope many of you have gotten into the habit of studying old people walking down the street. Have any of you done that? Yeah, and just think, that's going to be me. What will I have accomplished at that stage when I'm old and bent over and gray? What will I have What will be my joy? What will I have been? What will I have done in life? So what Maharaj Nimi is saying, we have to think about the actual medicine for conditioned souls like me, who are tormented by the threefold miseries of material existence. What's the actual medicine? Hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna. Oh, there's got to be something more than that, right? I mean, really, we're so busy with our work. We're so busy with our family affairs. Don't have time for that medicine. Then what is the purpose of our working? What's the purpose of our family affairs? They should provide the setting for the jewel of the medicine. The medicinal jewel is hearing and chanting Krishna's glories. And Maharaj Nimi is saying, I'm drinking it, I'm doing it, I'm drinking the nectar of your statements about the glories of the Supreme Personality Godhead, but I'm still thirsty. I want more, I want more, I want more. That's real life. I hope you can catch that. That is real life, when the thirst is there. I'm getting it, I'm hearing what you're saying, Antariksha, but I need more. I'm not satisfied. You've got to keep going. But this lack of satisfaction is not like material dissatisfaction. Material dissatisfaction just makes you frustrated and angry. But spiritual dissatisfaction means I love what I'm getting and I want more and more and more. The more I get, the more my appetite increases. There's no limitation. But with your attempts at material satisfaction, you try and you just, after a while, you just give up. You become angry and frustrated. It's just the same old thing. It promises big and delivers very little. And for that struggle, I have to work so hard. So this satiation phenomenon is very important. Material life won't satiate you, it won't satisfy you. But that's different from how spiritual life doesn't satisfy you. Spiritual life doesn't satisfy you in that you always want more and you'll get more. Material life doesn't satisfy you and you want more, but you won't get more. And you'll just become angry and angry and angry. More angry and more angry. And the quality of what you're getting is completely different. The attempt for spiritual satisfaction and the attempt for material satisfaction are dealing with two different energies. One energy, the external energy, promises big and delivers practically nothing. The spiritual energy promises the unlimited and delivers the unlimited. So we need constantly to understand how these two energies are operating and have a burning thirst, just like Maharaj Nimi. I've heard it before, but I've never heard it enough. So in the purport, we hear that according to Srila Sridhar Swami, one may argue that since the symptoms of a pure devotee of the Lord have already been elaborately described, one can perfect his life by advancing to the platform mentioned in the previous verse, and there's no need for further questions. But Hari Katamritam, topics about the Lord and his devotees are so pleasing and beautiful that one cannot give up hearing them, even after spiritual liberation. So an intelligent person wants to be free from material existence, but bhakti and the processes of devotional service are beyond even liberation. So much so that the devotee is not concerned with liberation. It's just a sideshow. The devotee is concerned with relating to Krishna, hearing about Krishna, which is beyond liberation, beyond freedom from material existence. An intelligent person should want liberation until that intelligent person starts to understand Krishna and his service. The more you engage in Krishna's service, the more liberation automatically accompanies you. Isn't that what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita? Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatijaitan brahma bhuyaya kolpate. For someone who is fully 24/7 engaged in service, they're beyond the modes of material nature. So you can have the spiritual world even within the material world. Therefore, a bhakti yogi just wants service to Krishna because that's the spiritual world. Whether the devotee serves Krishna in the material world or serves Krishna in the spiritual world, the devotee is in the spiritual world. So you might say, well, that sounds great, but isn't all that for the most advanced devotees? Whereas for the usual devotee down here on the ground, what do we really get to experience? But from the very beginning of your spiritual life, and if you continue with your spiritual life properly, the process is already happening. Just like the example of the coconut drying out. As the coconut starts to dry out, the inside, the pulp, starts to become detached from the husk of the coconut. That process begins somewhere. It doesn't just happen overnight. Oh, suddenly when you shake the coconut, the inside you hear rattling around inside. That had to start somewhere. Similarly, your bhakti and detachment from the illusion has to start somewhere. So even the beginner is experiencing the first stages of the pulp on the inside of the coconut detaching from the husk. And then, of course, in the highly advanced stage, the inside is totally detached from the outside. But my point is the detachment had to start somewhere. The inside of the coconut separating from the outer husk had to start somewhere. And that's what happens in the beginning stages of bhakti. So you can't say that all this information is great. What Nimi is saying is fine, but that's for the very advanced stage. Meanwhile, what can we all do? We're struggling with illusion, and what can we do? We engage solidly in Krishna's service, and gradually, just as the pulp inside the coconut gradually separates from the husk, gradually we become detached from the material energy. But we have to take the medicine. And you can see that often our bhakti yoga practitioners have a start and stop operation. They get going for a few years, then slack off, and then if they're fortunate, they start again and slack off and start again. And And then wonder, where's my taste? What happened to my taste? So Maharaj Nimi is talking about taking the medicine daily. But Harikatamritam, topics about the Lord and his devotees, are so pleasing and beautiful that one cannot give up hearing them, even after spiritual liberation. Those rare persons who are striving for spiritual liberation often have a difficult time understanding devotees. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you read about Prakashananda Saraswati, such an erudite sannyasi, leader of Mayavadi sannyasis, head of thousands of them. But he and his followers couldn't understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What is all this chanting and dancing you're doing? You should be just practicing severe austerities and studying what is Brahman. That's it. That's what a sannyasi does. But instead, you're chanting and dancing in the company of fanatics. Not only are you doing that, but you're doing it in Varanasi, the capital of Mayavad. So they couldn't understand. Because they think that the bhakti rasa is a material sentiment. A high material sentiment, but still a material sentiment. So we can be unconsciously influenced by Mayavad concoctions, that devotional service is just an ordinary experience, a little bit more elevated than ordinary experience, but it's still an ordinary humdrum thing after a while. Our vision becomes clouded and we lose our appreciation of the distinctiveness of chanting Hare Krishna, hearing about Krishna, engaging in Krishna's service. We just have this feeling that time is marching on and you just have to do your chores, execute your responsibilities, family life, work life, try to enjoy yourself. And who knows what will happen, but what else is there to do? This is a great tragedy. So to understand the uniqueness of bhakti is very important. It's beyond liberation. These Mayavadi sannyasis that you've read about in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's no doubt that they're doing pious activities. They're at the peak of performing punya, good karma, with their austerities and their studies, their metaphysical studies, but they can't understand devotional service. So even a little child in bhakti, like Yamuna, yes, right? She gets more than Prakashananda Saraswati and these Mayavadi sannyasis that you read about in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is what enrages impersonalists. Remember what happened when there was a meeting at the house of the father and uncle of Raghunath Das when he was still a householder? At his father and uncle's place, they had a gathering, a great assembly for discussing the glories of the holy name. And they invited Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya, the Acharya of the holy name. And they were discussing amongst themselves about the relative value, or we could say the absolute value of chanting Hare Krishna and liberation. So the conclusion was presented by Haridas Thakur, that liberation, freedom from material existence is just a secondary effect of chanting Hare Krishna. And with the first rays of pure chanting, just like with the first rays of dawn, even before the sun rises, just the first rays of dawn cause changes in that. Thieves go home, ghosts disappear just by the first rays of sun, not even the full sunrise. So Haridas Thakur explained that just by a glimpse of pure chanting, you get liberation. You haven't even reached the stage yet of pure offenseless chanting, but just a glimpse of pure chanting, and you have liberation. So one very handsome, impersonally contaminated person who happened to be present in the assembly said, wait a minute, we can't believe this. The greatest sages, the greatest sadhus are striving for liberation for hundreds of births. And you're saying that just by chanting Hare Krishna, liberation is just a side effect? I can't believe this. I can't accept it. And he told Haridas Thakur, if what you're saying is not true, then may your nose fall off. The whole assembly was horrified. How can you say this to Haridas Thakur? Raghunath Das's father and uncle said, hey, just get out of here. Get out of this house. The person was employed by them. They just said, you're fired. So how much are we like that person? I can't believe that my problems are going to be solved just by chanting Hare Krishna. That's what they told me when I first started coming to Bhakti Lounge. And I was desperate, so yeah, I believed it. But now, as the years have gone by, and I think I want to try to fulfill myself materially, as if such a thing exists. So we want to get to the stage of what King Nimi is talking about. I can't get enough of chanting Hare Krishna. I can't get enough of hearing Krishna's glories. Sometimes in life you come to these phases and days when you just don't know what to do next. Should I do this? Should I do that? You can always just chant Hare Krishna. Is that a fault? Rather than just have a compulsion, oh, got some time, don't know what to do, get on social media. You can always just chant Hare Krishna. Who's stopping you? Who says you have to only chant 16 rounds? And don't feel ashamed in doing that. Be happy. I'm just chanting because I feel like chanting. Don't have to justify yourself. Pick up a book and start to read, whether a printed book or your ebook or something. Don't have to justify it. Why am I doing this? Because I feel like it. Don't worry. Others may criticize. All you do is just read. All you do is just chant. That's a compliment. Oh, thank you. And of course, when you're reading and chanting properly, you have an appetite for engaging in Krishna's service. So you're always thinking, where is Krishna's service? So this is the life of the Bhakti yogi. A life of ever increasing spiritual desires that are always satisfied, but you still want more. This is hard for us to understand. If I'm satisfied, then that's it. But in Bhakti, you're satisfied, but you still want more. So we read, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this connection, has quoted the following verse. Atmaramascha munayo nagranta apyurukrame kurvancha itukim bhaktim itam bhuta guno hari. Those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are also attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. Hari, the personality of Godhead, is called Krishna because he has such transcendentally attractive features. Material medicine is not desirable once a disease has been cured. But on the absolute platform, the means and the end are not different. So chanting and hearing the glories of Lord Krishna are both the means and the end of transcendental bliss. So as I often explain, you're chanting Hare Krishna now for the purpose of what? What's the end result for chanting Hare Krishna right now? Is that you'll chant more Hare Krishna. Some may say, oh, I want mystic powers. Others will say, I want to go to the heavenly planets, to the Nanda gardens, where the heavenly planets ladies come to sport. Or I want liberation. But the result of chanting Hare Krishna, the pure result is, I want to chant more. So when you start to feel like that, then you can know your spiritual health is returning. In the beginning, yes, you have to force yourself to take the medicine. There's taste there, but the taste is nothing in comparison to what you get in the relishing stage. The taste, you will get a taste in the therapeutic stage. You'll feel, as Lord Chaitanya says, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, Bhavamaha Dhavagni Nirvapanam. You'll feel the dust on the mirror of your consciousness cleanse. You'll feel the blazing fire of material existence diminish. That's something, that's experience. That will happen. But as far as Anandam Buddhivardhanam, the ever-increasing ocean of transcendental bliss, that's the relishing stage. Now compare. What does material existence give you? The same old stale thing. No room for expansion. No further increase, just rehash, rerun, stale. And you get so depressed, and then what? You have to take intoxication. So you can forget. And you call that forgetfulness of your problems and despair, you call that happiness. King Nimi said to the sages, "You are all great saintly persons, absorbed in love of Godhead. Therefore, although you will speak about Maya or illusion, the conclusion will undoubtedly be Krishna consciousness. Please don't think that you've already explained everything to me. The intoxicating nectar of your instructions has left me more eager than ever to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead." So this is how we want to do outreach. We want to elevate our purity so that the listener thinks that the intoxicating nectar of your instructions has left me more eager than ever to hear about Krishna. So as we advance in purity, our katha, our talks about Krishna, our kirtans about Krishna become more elevated and leave the audience eager to hear more. So therefore, if we truly want to help others, we work on increasing our spiritual purity so that we can effectively touch the hearts of others and produce such a transformation that they're eager for more. Faith in bhakti means the conviction, not like a religious belief or creed, but faith, shraddha in bhakti means that you have the knowledge and experience that simply by engaging in Krishna's service, all goals are fulfilled. Lord Chaitanya talks about this as quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shabda kohe Shabda Shraddha. Oh. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas kohe Shujaja Nishchoy. Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Kama Kripta Hoy. Simply by engaging in Krishna's service, everything else is taken care of. An advanced devotee has the complete understanding of that. But even the newcomer has a glimpse of it. The newcomer starts associating with devotees and thinks, oh, what they seem nice people. What they're doing seems nice. That's the beginning of faith. It's not a religious belief. It's the tip of the iceberg of spiritual experience. Yeah, I like coming here. It's kind of nice, you know. They talk about interesting things and especially the food. That's why I keep coming back, because of the food. So gradually they become curious about the whole bhakti experience. And they become inspired to take up the processes of devotional service. So that's the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of shraddha, of faith. Experiential, not creedal, not religious belief. And then when the shraddha, when the faith is fully developed, you have that conviction based on knowledge and experience that simply by engaging in Krishna's service, all needs and wants are taken care of. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Shujaja Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Kama. All desires, Sarva Kama Kritta Hoy, they're taken care of. So that understanding and experience is what separates the devotee who's advancing from a devotee who's kind of wallowing. So hearing about the eagerness of Maharaj Nimi is very helpful for us. So the last paragraph of the purport says, King Nimi was also a great devotee of the Lord. In other words, not just the Navayogendras or Antariksha. King Nimi was also a great devotee of the Lord. Otherwise, there would have been no question of his personally conversing with such exalted living entities as the 9 Yogendras. But as a humble Vaishnava, he considered himself an ordinary conditioned soul, covered by material designations. Thus, he showed his eagerness to understand the actual nature of Maya in order to be safe from her future attempts to place him in the burning fire of material existence. So you can experience these attempts by Maya to put you back in the fire of material existence. Come on back and get incinerated. All in the name of enjoyment. And it's a magic show. It's so enticing, isn't it? You'll feel this and you'll experience that. It'll be like this, it'll be like that. Stripped of all the anxiety and frustration that you've already experienced in countless lifetimes. But the mystic potency of Maya just broadcasts into your mind. Something called pure sense gratification, which is an illusion completely. Anything to do with the body and mind is problematic. But in your mind, this broadcast, just like this projector is showing on the screen there. So the illusory broadcasting network just works on your mind. Look at that. That's free of time constraints, free of the constraints of space, free of karma. Just you and your senses and someone else's senses. That's it. Oh, how happy you're going to be. At least for a moment. And that's something, isn't it? Aren't you tired of being humble in devotional service? Aren't you tired of trying to hear the Hare Krishna mantra when your mind is going wild? Come on, there's a better life, at least for a few moments. Don't worry about the reactions. It's not necessary to think like that. It's amazing how the powerful impression burns in our mind so much and we can't see the reactions. Although we've been up that road so many times, still, because it's Maya, bewildering potency. It's a magic show. She doesn't let you see the end result. So this is why Nimi is asking these questions. I want to understand this illusory energy, what it does. Not only does it frustrate you, but it blocks you from understanding Krishna. Here's the mistake we make. We think my understanding of Krishna is independent of my lifestyle. Not at all. Krishna is beyond the modes of material nature. To truly understand Krishna, you have to become beyond the modes of material nature. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Chibir, Gunamaya, Bhavaya. The 3 modes of material nature bewilder you. You can't see what's above them. So you can make progress out of the illusion of Maya by developing a thirst for hearing about Krishna. But unconsciously, we're affected by Mayavad. We're not metaphysical great scholars like Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavad sannyasis in Chaitanya Charitamrita. They were super Vedic, but they just couldn't understand the goal of the Vedas. But still, we can be thinking the glories of Krishna. It's nice sometimes, but I gotta get on with my life. I got things to do, you know, bills to pay. Minds to try to satisfy, bodies to try to satisfy. Real stuff, you know? Oh, you devotees, you know. Yeah, I know, the nectar of hearing about Krishna, right? Hari Katamrita. That's all well and good, but you got to deal with the real world and dig in and grit your teeth and fight it out. And then when you get exhausted from slugging it out with the material world, then you want some nice, comforting sense gratification. That'll really hit the spot. It's all imaginary, and that's why King Nimi wants to hear about it. You've explained to me before, he says. Please speak more fully about this subject. We wish to learn about the illusory potency, which bewilders even the demigods, what to speak of human beings.